Welcome, everyone. Welcome back, Council, from break. 8:09 City Council work session. The first item that we have up this evening is the Connect Oregon project applications. And as all of you know, I'm your representative on the local act. And City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'll turn over to Chris Henry, who will kind of provide us some information, and then we'll be available for questions, of course.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to help you assist in discussing and prioritizing Connect Oregon 4 projects. As you may know, the Mayor sits on the Lane Area Commission on Transportation, one of several regional bodies throughout the state that are advisory to the Oregon Transportation Commission. Connect Oregon is a multimodal investment that the Oregon Transportation Commission and the state legislature has invested lottery bond-backed funds over the last several years in 3 previous allotments of $100 million each. So $300 million so far. This time, $40 million is what they are putting up for disbursement throughout the state to support air, rail, marine, and transit infrastructure. I want to give you a brief overview of the process for the selection, mention the projects that are being considered in the Lane County area, and then be available to answer any questions. For the $40 million that folks are competing for, there have been 65 applications worth $77 million. If you did some rough math, about half the projects are going to make it, and maybe half won't if they're all equal. There are some somewhat pass-fail criteria that have been reviewed by the Oregon Business Development Department and ODOT, looking at do the projects reduce transportation costs, do they create access to jobs or create sources of labor, is there an economic benefit statewide, do they provide a critical link in the transportation system, how much of the cost of the project could be borne by the applicant, and are they ready for construction. There has been state agency reviews that have already taken place to develop the list of 65 projects. There were modal committees like air, freight, and rail committees that, as well as this business development group, that have ranked the projects, and I believe the mayor has shared with you some of that information. I got it very late myself, so I'm just maybe half a step ahead of you or right behind you. Those we're now at the stage where the regional committees provide the review. That happens Wednesday evening with the Lane Area Commission on Transportation. Similarly, but separately, the Metropolitan Policy Committee will be meeting Thursday, I believe, to have that same discussion. The next level of review will happen on May 3rd for ODOT's Region 2, and that's Lane County and sort of northwest up to Astoria, for what all the Area Commission on Transportation chairs and vice chairs will meet in what they call a super act to prioritize projects. Following that review, there will be a final review committee prioritization where the whole entire statewide group of area commissions on transportation chairs, vice chairs, plus the modal committee chairs will meet. That's scheduled sometime early June or later. I spoke with ODOT staff and they said the date might slip. Finally, in July, the Oregon Transportation Commission will make...
It's warm in here. I thought we were on a budget. Are supposed to turn you down?
Finally, in July, the Oregon Transportation Commission will make their grant awards. I believe there's loan programs as well for funding. There are 5 projects in the Lane County area, one of which is the City of Eugene project. The City of Eugene is requesting $451,000 of a $752,000 project to rehabilitate a ramp at the airport. Failing pavement in that area has caused some partial closure that connects from buildings on the airport site that provide for some of the aviation activities out there, some of which are related to Lane Community College and existing and potentially future job opportunities. We can't use some of that surface now because of the deteriorating pavement, and it's anticipated to get even worse. So this provides access to those facilities, then connects to taxiways and the runways themselves. City of Cresswell has some similar taxiway improvements of $400,000 that they're asking for, which is the majority of a $566,000 project. They're also asking in Cresswell for a weather observation system to help guide pilots. There is a rail facility in West Eugene area called the Lost Creek Rock Products Multimodal Facility. That's they're asking for $477,000 of $1.2 million project. That would transport logs, lumber, and aggregate to the coast. And then lastly, there is a near the petrochemical tank farm, a project called Fuel Logistics to create a offload facility that would move ethanol from rail cars to the tank farm to blend E10 ethanol. There's some controversy about that project competing with a project that was under development with the Lane Regional Air Pollution Authority and the Oregon Department of Energy to develop a distribution system for E85 ethanol more broadly. That project ranks sort of midway by the rail committee and freight committees, so it may or may not have a chance of surfacing to the top. Going back to the Eugene project, it ranked 11 out of 28 projects by the Air Advisory Group. That's about all I had to say. I've got a stack of paper here that I've poured over in the last hour, and a little bit, and I'll do my best to answer questions if you have some.
Thanks. So what I just wanted to add to that is it is my understanding that the act is not thumbs up or thumbs down. They just are putting in order of priority the projects that have been proposed. So
Prioritization and ultimately recommendation once that was called the final review committee prioritization, right?
And so out of those projects, our project is, as Chris said, is number 11 out of 28 rated. Cresswell has 2 projects. Their AWAS improvement project is 22 out of 28. The taxi lane was 13 out of 28. The Lost Creek was 19 out of 20 and 36 out of 38. And the fuel logistics was 16 out of 20 and 19 out of 38. So if you sort of looked at the ratings, you would come up with a prioritization of Eugene, number 1, and the 2 Cresswell ones, and then the fuel, and then the Lost Creek in kind of that order by the prioritization. So I just want to hear from you what you want me to take forward. That would be sort of following what the multimodal groups assess them as. Anybody? Betty?
The question, who did the numbers, the number 1, 2, 3?
The 1, 2, well, tier, are you asking about tiers?
So who decided something is number 22 or number 19?
Those were well, Chris can answer.
There was that initial tier review by the Oregon Business Development Department and ODOT, and then the scoring that the mayor just shared was from Air Committee priorities, Freight Committee priorities, and Rail Committee priorities.
Committees of the
ODOT put those committees
Yeah.
together.
Committee,
They're
right,
ODOT.
advisory to
The OTC.
Oregon Transportation Commission, correct. And then adding to that will be these Area Commission on Transportation priorities.
Thank you. That's all.
just.
Yeah, one real quick question. On the South Ramp reconstruction, what did that score? I'm sorry, I didn't get that one.
That
7 out of 20.
that was 11 out of 28.
And then the off-road, Eugene Rail offload project,
That is 19 out of 20 by the Rail Committee, and 36 out of,
38.
Mayor said 38, I found 39 on
okay,
the Freight Committee.
thank you.
Alan?
So I concur with what you said, Mayor, in terms of the priorities and what the committees came up with, and I think that they had about right. So I like the priorities of the Eugene one being first, and then the two Cresswell Airport ones, followed by the fuel one and the Lost Creek as the priority.
Yep.
And I suspect maybe you can explain how the ACT's going to do their prioritization.
You have that in front of you there. There's a list
Oh.
of, that we're going to be used to filter it through, which I don't have in front of me, but we'll look at
Criteria.
We'll look at those from others. We will look at the criteria that was used for the tiering, and we will, of course, listen to each other, because everybody will have their, I feel pretty confident that Mayor Cresswell's going to be pushing for the Cresswell projects, and so it'll be like that. We'll have that conversation. But it'll be very weighted toward the kind of, what the multimodal groups rated as.
Yes, the ACT, the Area Commission on Transportation, is going to hold a public hearing, a little bit longer meeting than usual. They're going to look at some of the similar criteria, economic benefit review, statutory considerations that I mentioned, I highlighted, and then Lane Act members' knowledge and expertise. So there's representatives of some of those different groups, correct, and then the area communities. I'm not sure if folks have provided those review comments in advance. It seems a little odd because public testimony is part of the consideration, but
You're
you'll...
all supposed to arrive
I've-
with what we've been told by our councils and the folks that we listen to, and then you add that to the
Right.
to what you hear at the public hearings.
And it's all intended to happen that Wednesday evening.
So, Mayor, are you looking for head nods? Are you looking for a motion to put these in priority, or just kind of
I
a
just put it in
sense?
front of you that unless you tell me otherwise, I'm going to go for the, I'm just going to take from us at Eugene project number 1, then the 2 Cresswell, then the Fuel Logic and the Lost Creek, and in that order. Unless you tell me
No,
you have an
that's-
objection
that
to
makes
it, that's
sense.
the way I'm going to take it for,
And the taxi lane would be the first of the 2 Cresswells?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yes, ma'am.
That's okay with everyone?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, the taxi lane project ranked lower in the scoring than the weather system for Cresswell. Yes.
I got behind on the numbers, and I got
Well,
it.
we've got the 22 out of 28 for the AWAS and 13 out of 28 for the taxi. That's what I got.
So I figured 13. Right, but what I heard Councilor Polling say was the taxiway one would be the number 2, but it's the number 2 Cresswell project, but the number 3, yeah.
Well, I don't know, because I've got in front of me, and maybe you have something different, I've got the AWAS Cresswell project as being rated 22 out of 28.
We're agreeing on that,
And
yes.
the taxi project 13 out of 28, which would make it higher.
What it sounds like is,
Oh, but Cresswell.
what we can do is just verify that, but what it sounds like, of whichever that order is generally where people want to
Yeah.
head towards. Is that what that is? And we'll just,
Yes.
we'll kind of work through the admin part of that.
I think you guys have it.
Okay, Betty?
Question, you said, which one did you say might conflict with what Lane Regional Air Protection Agency?
That was the fuel logistics, the ethanol transfer.
Explain how that would conflict.
I read a letter in the review material submitted by Tyree Oil that was working with LRAPA, the Lane Regional Air Pollution Authority, and the Department of Energy.
It's Air Protection Agency now, it used to be.
Protection, sorry. You're correct. And their concern was about loss of jobs because there's a difference between, well, the rail transfer facility is more efficient, takes less labor. There's some initial job creation through construction activity, but in the long term, there's a loss of jobs. There's, on the plus side of the proposal, it reduces trucking on the street system in Eugene, which would support some aspirations of the council to reduce fossil fuel consumption and so forth. But what it doesn't, it creates an imbalance of accessibility of ethanol for E85 fuels. Right now, they have to go to like Portland and Tacoma to get E85 fuels. This rail facility would not support the E85 fuel system. It benefits only the E10 distribution. So it creates perhaps an unfair advantage for the E10 over E85 is what Tyree claims.
Thank you.
So everybody's okay with what I suggested? I think we're done.
It's a mixed bag.
Thank you.
E85 is more,
85% ethanol.
right, is more from a carbon footprint is, and that's why El Rapo is probably more supportive of the 85 side of it.
And then it supplies a wholesale distribution system that many more people can access.
Right.
Less.
Okay. Got it. Thanks.
Thank you.
I guess the only piece I would add to that is I don't think the city of Eugene took any position on either any of those projects except for our project. Okay, we're going to move on to the committee reports. And here for that. I just wanted to make a couple comments, and one is that this is the first time we've had an opportunity to thank all of our city employees for the huge effort they made for the cleanup after the storm. And so I want to recognize what a great job they did.
Probably still doing it.
Still some work, but yeah.
And then I want to, this weekend we had Saturday, Arbor Day, and our 37th year being recognized as Tree City USA, I think. And Councilor Brown was out there planting trees with the I think there were a lot
Canadian
of volunteers.
chairs.
There were a lot of
100 people.
Yeah, 100 people.
people.
100 people were out there planting trees for us on Arbor Day. So it was wonderful event. And the Saturday market opened this weekend. So here comes summer. This is always a good thing.
Almost planted.
So let's start with the Human Rights Commission. Do you want to say anything about that?
I'll be very brief. The Human Rights Commission, we met this month, and probably the most talked about element, or talked about item on the agenda was coordination of certain projects with the Sustainability Commission. It was one of our goals for the year, for our work plan for this coming year, was to work closely with other commissions, and the Sustainability Commission joined us and made a recommendation for a couple of areas that we could work together on potentially. One of them being West 11th and MX. There was a little bit of discussion around the table at the Human Rights Commission that it wasn't really much of a human rights issue. In fact, there was a letter that was read stating a little bit to the contrary that diminishing service to other parts of the city, if funding MX on West 11th diminished service to other parts of the city, then that was more of a Human Rights Commission issue, is less served populations potentially being less served by buses. So we will continue to work on that and work on the Human Rights Commission working more closely with other commissions to, in particular, look at the third leg of the triple bottom line, which is social equity.
So, Ellen, you want to talk about the Sustainability Commission?
Sure. The Sustainability Commission's been fairly busy working on most of the issues that are in front of the council. One very fun, kind of cool note is that if you recall, I think it was last year sometime, the year before maybe, one of the we asked the Sustainability Commission to look at car sharing and how to make it more viable in the Eugene area. And that, along with other partners, specifically LTD and ODOT and other folks, have did an RFP, and they picked WeCar as the people to respond to that $100,000 and RFP to create some share cars in the area. And so now we have 4 community share cars, 1 in Springfield and 3 in Eugene. One's downtown, and they're Ford Fusions. And the way that works is you sign up, you get a card, you swipe your card in the front of the car, and you can use the car on an hourly basis. So for those people that don't own a car, don't choose to own a car, this is a much more cost-effective way, and the tune of like hundreds of dollars a year versus thousands of dollars a year to own a car, and it can promote transportation for these. The average user uses a car about less than 3 hours. And so it really does make sense. So now we have 4 of those, and you just go to the WeCar website, sign up, and you can become a member. I think there's 250 members, a little over 250 members so far, and it just started a week ago. So if anybody's interested, that's the place to go to get that, and that's kind of a very cool thing that the Sustainability Commission helped push forward. So the one, there's one in the Parkade, and there's one in the there's one downtown, and there's one, I forget where the other 2 are. I'll get that to you. The other thing, yeah, there's one near campus, and then a couple of other large apartment complexes have one, like the Center Court next to the new Math United Arena has a WeCar that's there for the residents, so they can use that. We also had a bunch of new electric vehicle charging stations that have gone in all over the place. In our Parkade and the Broadway South Garage, and the Overpark has 2 stations and 6 stations in 2 at the train depot as well. And so they're being installed around as grants come from the state and the feds, U.S. Department of Energy in particular. You also probably heard in the news the coal train. I hope you've heard of it. It's been in the news quite lately. In fact, it was in the news today when several thousand people did a demonstration at the Capitol and delivered 8,000 signatures to the governor today. It's about Wyoming and Montana coal going through Eugene to the Coos Bay to be shipped to China. And the EPA has come out, I think, in their findings have said that there are likely to be a significant negative impact on Eugene's public health, economy, air, and water quality because of this new rail. And the Sustainability Commission has looked at this. They've been asked by some public members to look at this, and right now the Sustainability Commission is crafting a letter that's going to come to the council asking for action opposing this train for several reasons. The public health issues around the coal dust and the heavy metals incorporated in that, and the way that it impacts neighborhoods, especially that are adjacent to the railroad tracks, and then the economic impact of the dust on crop values and local farmers, and also the environmental impact of the climate change issues around more coal to China and burning coal without regulatory constraints. So that's going to come back to the council pretty soon as a request for action. And then the other issues that the Sustainability Commission has been working on, they've done a liaison out to work with the Human Rights Commission on the third leg of the triple bottom line, social equity issues. So that relationship is starting to get put together. Pat mentioned it. And so that one will move forward on different fronts. And then the Sustainability Commission's going to, as part of their role, which is they're supposed to advise the council on issues that are of important order that we ask them to. So they're going to make some recommendations in letter form on both Envision Eugene, which shouldn't be anything new to anybody, since we asked them to do that, and also Capstone Project. So both those. So should be getting about 3 letters from the Sustainability Commission in the next several weeks.
Do you want to do travel?
Just one more thing. There's also there's 4 commissioners that are turning over. I think some of them are term limited out. A couple of them will be reappointed by you all. And then we have a new chair, Kathy Jaworski, who's coming in. So her next meeting will be her first one. That's George's appointee. She's doing a great job. And I just want to compliment the outgoing chair, Josh Scove, who did a fantastic job of chairing that committee for the last year and keeping people's nose to the grindstone and keeping everybody on track. And he's leaving the commission at the end of his term. He's my appointee, so I'll be replacing him. And then there's one more person, Stacy Vinn, who actually is moving to Tacoma, who was kind of between the Sustainability Commission or Sweetie, and I don't know, kind of a no-brainer, I suspect. So there'll be an additional new vacancy that will fill through this process coming up here.
And didn't Chris Anglin resign?
And Chris Anglin resigned too, so actually, so that'll be another one, right?
Hey, George, you want to talk about travel Lake County?
Well, the last 2 board meetings I have not been able to attend because we've had some sort of a joint elected officials meeting instead. I would just like to announce that tomorrow night is a Tuesday night wine tasting at the Gateway Adventure Center that they do. And also they're starting up again with their the Kids Adventure Club. Anybody that's got children, go on the Travel Lake County website. It's got a list of their activities and how to sign up your child for the Kids Adventure Club. It's kind of an exciting thing. So I do have a question. Are we going to have time to
Sure. We'll do this and I'll
come around later?
Around.
Okay.
So, Andrea and Pat, the Human Services Commission?
Well, Mayor, we're going to be discussing a lot of the stuff that the Human Services Commission is doing as a subject item, so I think I'm going to go ahead and pass.
Okay. Lake Council of Governments, Chris?
Yeah, there's really 2 interconnected items really that are of significance right now. The first one is that Lane Council of Governments is in the process of hiring a new executive director, and they have been going through a extensive process and have narrowed it down to 2 finalists. And so the board of directors will be interviewing those finalists on April 19th. And so they're hoping to have a recommendation for the full board on the 19th for a replacement for a director. Related to that then becomes the status of LCOG as an organization vis-a-vis its funding. If someone's going to come in and be the new executive director for LCOG, they want to know that there is an LCOG for them to come and be the director of. And so, as we know very well from our budget, the overall budget doesn't reflect the operation, and the general fund of LCOG is very much influenced by the dues of its members. And so the whole conversation around what are the dues of the members paying into it, and not just Eugene's, but all of the member dues, is a very significant conversation that LCOG is having right now. And the Executive Committee is meeting this Thursday to talk very seriously about what kind of flexibility there is within LCOG to recognize the current economic situation, to recognize the budget challenges that all the partners have, and what kind of ground we can reach where LCOG recognizes that perhaps they can't receive the full amount that they would like to receive, but that there is some money there to ensure the continued survival of LCOG. It is an enormous opportunity to reboot the organization, to do some really great things there. If we lose LCOG, you lose a large number of intergovernmental agreements, a number of organizations, a number of grants, a number of things go away or need to find other homes, and that would be an extremely complicated process. So there's a huge investment in LCOG. Keeping it going seems to be in our best interest, but figuring out what it takes to do that, I think, is a very important conversation. I'm grateful that the executives of the member governments are participating in those conversations. John and Gino and Leanne and other execs are trying to work with LCOG to figure out what is the middle ground that we can find to ensure the long-term survival of the organization. And at this crucial point, when they're just about to hire a new executive director who can represent a major, upbeat new shift for the organization, this is not the time to starve them to death. So we need to figure out what we want to do. So that's kind of where we are right now.
And the MPC?
At the end, I'll ask the mayor to talk about two things, the rail and the MPC Act protocol, and how those two things, or two groups, are figuring out how to work together since the Act is new. We had an opportunity to finally have a meeting with our local representative to the Oregon Transportation Commission appointed by the governor, and that's Mark Frohmeyer. And he came and talked to us about the Oregon Transportation Initiative and the Sustainable Transportation Initiative, and also talk about some of the things that he got to do a shameless plug for his little company that he has called Arcimoto, which is a very cool little electric vehicle, and it's in its, I think, 6th generation, and ready to get out into the marketplace. And unfortunately, he didn't bring one so that we could all ride in it, but he did show us some cool videos of Stana Caddick, who's the lead. Female lead in the show Castle. She was driving around in that thing. It was pretty cool around San Francisco. She drove through a gas station in San Francisco just to tell everybody she didn't need to stop there because it was an electric vehicle. And also, we had a presentation on the Oregon Sustainable Transportation Initiative, which is related to some of the work that I did related to Senate Bill 2001 and all these different plans about how do we get a more sustainable multimodal transportation system. And one of the requirements of Senate Bill 2001 was that and 1059 was that the state would come up with a plan for sustainable transportation, and it's called the Oregon Sustainable Transportation Initiative. And I'll send around the link to everybody so you can look at that. The other thing that we did was we approved the MTIP, which is the transportation plan for this local area, or recommendations that we give to ODOT for moving projects forward. There were a couple of ODOT projects that were added to the list, but there really weren't that many changes to it, so it's the same list that's been forwarded for the last umpteen times. So that's a forward-looking list for the 2012 to 2015 period, or I'm sorry, 13 through 14 period. Unfortunately, the news about that is that is all bad, because the amount of money available for that has been on a steady decline over time as gas prices stay high and people drive less with the economy, and also the increase in the number of high-efficiency vehicles and other kinds of hybrid vehicles. The amount of gas tax dollars that we've had that fund that program have been declining over time, and so we're seeing less and less money going to that program to fund road projects. And the trend is that continual decline. So part of what Commissioner Frohmeyer was talking about, and also the Sustainable Transportation Initiative, is looking at alternative ways to fund transportation that don't rely exclusively on the gas tax, because that is just a plan that is heading downward. And so that whole issue about how do we fund transportation in a different way is starting up now. One of the things that came out of the work that we did in SB 2001 and other places, Global Warming Commission and other places, is to shift transportation funding from the gas tax model to a model that's more akin to the way the electric utilities charge for their commodity, kilowatt hours. And that, if you look at your electric bill, you have 3 different kind of charges. You have one that's related to a basic charge, which is just to get onto the system, and you have one that how much you use the system or the energy charge, and then one that's related to how much you use it during the peak. And so that kind of triad of different ways of funding of the electricity system is one of the thoughts is to plunk that down onto the transportation system, and so have a transportation access fee as well as a fee that is related to how much you use the road system, and then one that's related to congestion pricing around the peaks. And we've seen some interesting projects happen around the Portland area around transportation congestion pricing. So I think that's the way the transportation world is kind of moving, and getting away from just the old gas tax, which is not a sustainable funding mechanism. The other, we did have some good news, which is that we did our federal air quality conformity report for the Regional Transportation Plan and the MTIP, which said we were indeed conforming with the air quality constraints. That comes back to way back in 1984 when we had a CO, carbon monoxide, we violated the limits, and then in 1994 was the last time we violated them, which put us on a 20-year monitoring period. Although we have not had any violations of that standard in the last 20 years, we still have to go through that whole 20-year period, and then in 2014 we'll have gone through the 20-year period without any violations, and we won't have to do that report anymore. So that's a good thing that our community has actually reduced the carbon monoxide pollution that's has been in our community since the mid-'80s. And then the final thing is that we've been working on in MPC is the greenhouse gas planning, scenario planning work that we need to do. As part of Senate Bill 2001, Lane MPC is required to do scenario planning around greenhouse gases and how that affects transportation and land use, and using a toolkit of options to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. And we're required to do the planning and select a scenario, but we're not required to implement them. The only jurisdiction that's required to implement the plan is Metro, and they're on the way to going through that as well. Ours doesn't have to be done until 2014, so we're working on that. The HUD grant that we've all been talking about over the last year actually has some synergy around that, and that intergovernmental agreement has allowed some of the work that is required not to do the same thing because they're not redundant, but there's some synergy around how we might be able to do that work to benefit both of those projects without being redundant. So it's always nice when we get those kind of synergies to happen around grants and requirements that we have. And then, Mayor, if you want to talk about rail and the Act.
I'll just be really brief. The Act and MPC agreed that when the priorities that come from the MPC get taken over to the Act, that they will be folded in the order that they come from the MPC. So they won't just pick and choose and move them around. And the other thing that they agreed to was that if they have differences, the leadership will meet and try to iron them out. I think that's pretty much the essence of the agreement. We had a rail meeting and working agreements and began to sort of work on the rail alignment, and that happened a couple weeks ago. So we're moving down the road on that. I guess I don't know.
Down the track.
I was going to say that.
The only other thing I wanted to, I don't know whether we've talked about it here, but flexible funding committee is they had more money than they thought they were going to have. They were able to take care of Councilor Ortiz's favorite project, which is...
Take my thunder, Mayor.
I'll tell you what it is.
No, it's okay. Go ahead. Kitty at the back.
Is this supported parties in Whitaker?
No.
Favorite project. This is a different.
I beg your pardon.
Okay, so take it off.
No, go ahead.
No. It's your turn.
Well, it was brought to our attention that Rob Zinnerfield whispered to several committee members in Train Solomon and ABC that there was money found from the federal government that they were going to, I couldn't quite remember where it was coming from, they were going to be able to fund sidewalk on Highway 99 on one side. So that is really of the overpass from Roosevelt to Garfield. Yay. So I'm truly very excited about it. It just I'll look at it half full, not half empty, because there is the other side, but it's better than, it's very good. I'm very thankful to the staff for continuing to carry that for us.
Halfway there.
Yep.
Okay, you got anything else you want to?
Yes, actually, I do, Mayor. I have a list. Okay.
Your other favorite project?
Hush. So, well, it's not really a favorite thing. I've just gotten some more calls from North Seneca community members, because the way that road is designed is there's nowhere for the water to go, and during the last storm, snow, rain, they were flooded, and it's flooding into their homes, and I don't know that that's partly because of the design of the way that it was, and so I've got some more phone calls this week from them, and I'm just really hoping that we can address their issues. This is a part of our committee's report, so Councilor Farr, myself, Commissioners Handy and Bosevich and Cunningham from EWEB and Representative Hoyle were actually all at ABC this last week and got to visit with the folks out there, and I think it was a pretty good turnout. I don't know. We had a great time. So, and then that's really all I have about to share outside of wishing my granddaughter a happy birthday last week. So.
Good. Okay, anybody else have some? George?
Yeah, couple of things real quick about the Harlan Neighborhood Association. First of all, they are having a candidates forum at the North Park Community Church for Lane County Commissioners Candidate Forum on Thursday, April 19 from 6 until 8 p.m. And also our general meeting will be on Thursday, May 10th at 6 o'clock at the North Park Community Church. And real quick, during the spring break, like they did during the winter break, the Harlan Neighborhood Association, Bertha Holt Elementary, Parents at Holt, North Park Community Church, Willackenzie Evangelical Church, and Trader Joe's, and this time Papa's Pizza joined in, and they did a food drive and put together 70 reusable grocery bags from Trader Joe's full of food for the some of the children at Holt Elementary that qualify for the free lunch.
So that's Church Business School and who else? Church Business School and who else?
It's the Bertha Holt Elementary, Parents at Holt School, North Park Community Church, Willackenzie Evangelical Church, Harlan Neighborhood Association, Trader Joe's, and then Papa's Pizza. During winter break, we put together meals for 73 children this year. This time we did it for 70. So it just goes to show you how a neighborhood can work to benefit the neighborhood, and it's quite the turnout, and everybody's just really pleased, and we're looking forward to doing it again. The other thing, I've been getting inundated with phone calls from people about the mess that's going on the 105 underpasses on Colbert Road. There's garbage, there's human waste, people are being harassed. My thinking is that property actually belongs to ODOT because it is underneath the freeway. I'm not sure, but they're starting to tunnel in underneath the roadway at the top of these dirt banks, and it's getting dangerous for people. At the 105 overpasses and off-ramps at Colbert Road and Oakway, I'm getting calls about it every day.
Okay.
So I don't know if we need to get a hold of ODOT and see who has jurisdiction over there, but there are a couple of those overpasses where they've got brick all the way down to the sidewalk, and some of them they've actually had to cage off already. So whether or not they're going to have to do that again, I don't know, but people on bicycles are being stopped by these people that are hanging out around there. They're stepping out in traffic. Like I said, there's human waste just falling down the banks, and it's just deplorable. And the last thing is I've got a meeting coming up the first week of May. It's the EMX Steering Committee for LTD. I think we're on the verge of getting the report back from the federal government. I don't know if they're going to ask for a vote at that time by the steering committee. If we could find out and have a meeting beforehand so I know how to vote. Otherwise, if they ask me to vote, I'm going to have to abstain from any voting because of a lack of a direction from the council on this issue. So we might need to work on that real quick and get that up. I think the meeting is the first Tuesday of May. It's one of the nights that we were scheduled to have boards and commission interviews.
Like the first.
First or second.
I could add something to that, George. I recently heard that they're not expecting to get the report from the feds for for several months.
Okay, so then the last word I got was that it was coming back to us pretty quick, so.
Yeah.
All right, very good.
Like June, July is what I heard, maybe later
At
than that.
whatever point you'll need to have direction.
All right, anybody else have anything for the good of, yes, I know you do. You
Oh.
wanna say that first?
Just as this is the items, I'll be on the phone for Wednesday's meeting, and then I'll actually be absent for the public hearing on Monday, but we only have one item, fortunately, on that. But I'll listen to that on the webcast.
I'll miss the public hearing as well. It's next Monday, but I will be watching that on television.
Just briefly, the River Road Community Neighbors Association has their monthly meeting tonight. It always conflicts with the council meeting. And I've been asked to join them for an item on their agenda tonight, so I will not be at the second meeting today.
City Manager, you have some good news for us.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to extend congratulations to two of our employees, Peggy Kepler in Public Works. She's part of our engineering team, and she was selected as one of the American Public Works Association's top 10 leaders for 2012, which is a pretty significant award, and it really reflects very well upon her for her work within the organization here professionally, but also her work with the organization and being recognized by her peers. It's a pretty significant award. They award that to 10 people throughout North America that are in the public works profession.
That's great.
And so if you consider that against really tens of thousands of people, it's really great. So great kudos to her.
Sure.
The other one is Chief Kearns was selected by the Oregon Association of Chiefs of Police. They'll be receiving one of their top awards later on this week during their annual meeting, and really being recognized for his work with the Chris Kilcullen shooting, as well as the memorial and the celebration after that, as well as work with the downtown public safety and Occupy Eugene last fall. So he's being awarded for that. So that's good for a couple of our employees.
Absolutely.
All right, so with that, we're going to move on to the next item on our agenda, and that is the
item up for bid on
Capstone
Price is Right.
project. City Manager.
I'll turn that over to Sarah.
Always sounds like that in my ear when she says it.
Good evening. I'm mostly going to turn it over to Nan, but I did want to just mention at first that part of the reason that we have been scheduling and coming to council often is that this is one of those projects that comes to Eugene that actually crosses whole lot of things. So hits all of the pillars of Envision Eugene, and also kind of hits all of the goals and outcomes we're trying to achieve as part of your council goals and vision. So it's an important piece of property. It's an important project, and there's a lot of things that we need to work through and talk about. So we've tried to intentionally schedule enough time to make sure we're getting the full breadth of information before we ask you to make any kind of decision. So with that, I'll just turn it over to Nan.
Thank you. So we're here tonight to talk again about the Capstone proposal to build student housing on the former Peace Health Clinic site. We'd like to accomplish a couple of things tonight. First, we want to review and report on what we've heard from the community conversations, and actually how many community conversations we've had. And second, we want to give you a sense of how we're working through the issues that we're hearing, and we're looking for ways that this project could perform best for the community should it go ahead. Really, we're trying to do that issue by issue. So since we've met previously on March 12th, there have been a number of events, large and small. On March 13th, Jefferson Westside held a community meeting, a panel actually, and about 60 people attended. And then on March 14th, the city sponsored an open house. About 50 to 60 people participated, and members of the community that came had the opportunity to talk directly to the development team, as well as folks from police, Public Works, LTD, and the U of O. And we've tracked the questions that we heard. We've provided those answers for you as attachment B. The feedback we've gotten from that meeting has been really positive. I think the folks that came really liked being able to ask a question and get an answer from the appropriate person. DNA, Downtown Neighbors, also had a meeting on March 26th to talk about the project. Now, Over the last few weeks, Capstone has had a lot of meetings with different property owners and different organizations, and so I'll report on some of those. We know of some of them, but there are many that have happened that Capstone has taken the opportunity to speak to folks and hear their ideas. But the ones that we know about have included more meetings with Downtown Neighbors Association, also with Olive Plaza, and with the advocacy organization Look Me in the Eye. And Attachment C in your packet provides letters from Capstone that capture some of the content of those meetings. Capstone has also met with the Sustainability Commission to present information on the project and listen to the issues coming back and the suggestions. And in fact, I think that's really been the pattern. A presentation with information and then the opportunity to listen and hear back issues and suggestions. We have also been collecting public comments on the proposed multi-unit property tax exemption for this project. We've included the ones that we have so far, that we've so far collected in your packet as Attachment D, and as we receive any others, we will also forward them prior to your decision. Now, in general, we've really been hearing 4 categories of questions: management, transportation and parking, questions about the MUPTI, and questions about design and construction. So the main question that we've heard is about management, and really it's been the main question for the project in general, and that's how does Capstone propose to manage the project, and what happens if Capstone sells? Capstone has told us that it's their intention, and in fact their business model, to maintain management of the property even if a sale were to take place. In order to make this project acceptable to their investors, management is a fundamental need for the project, robust management. Student housing of this sort is a specialized management focus, really, so if a new owner came, if the project were sold and a new owner came, they would need to retain a firm, either to retain Capstone or to pull in another firm that also has a specialization in managing student housing projects. Because the investment firm is looking for the same assurance of quality and continuation of the project, so that they would also be looking for a manager who specializes in this kind of project. So Capstone has made their commitment to project management pretty clear. They've provided more details on how they manage similar projects, and that's in your packet at the end of Attachment B. So what they've proposed is 5 full-time managers plus 12 to 15 part-time managers. Now, the community has been equally clear about the need for ongoing site management, particularly if the project is sold. Since this is such a salient point from everything we've heard, and Capstone has heard as well, Capstone has asked for the opportunity to look for a way to lock in their commitment for strong management, even if it's not their firm that continues with the project. And we're looking for a way to make that happen at their request. So this would be one of the ways that the project could perform better for this community. For the category of transportation and parking, 2 issues rose to the top: the amount of parking and the bike path. Capstone is proposing to create a bike path instead of the existing right-of-way that goes along 12th. We heard a lot of enthusiasm for the bike path idea, and we've been working with Public Works to really nail down all the details of what that bike path would look like and how it would work. For parking, there were questions about the amount and the need, and we heard both sides of the issue. The desire to have only as much parking as was needed, and also the desire to have enough parking so that the impacts on the surrounding neighborhood would be less and kept to a minimum. So based on what we've heard from Capstone, the lender initially required a parking ratio of 1-to-1, and that's, one student, one resident to one car. And Capstone initially proposed a 0.9 ratio, so they lowered it from what their lender had originally wanted. They're now looking to reduce that further to 0.8, and actually it would be a ratio of 0.7 for the students, and any remainder would be for guests, again, to mitigate any impact that parking in the neighborhood might have. We've also heard significant support for promoting walking, biking, and transit. So some of the possible responses that we're hearing and looking to are that Capstone will work with LTD for a new bus stop. They'll provide more bike parking than what's required, and they'll provide an on-site car-sharing facility and also the availability of plug-ins, I guess you'd call them, for electric vehicles or electric charging stations. We've also heard some questions about the traffic impact analysis, or the TIA, which is required for a project of this size. Now, the TIA is in process, and planning staff is working closely with Public Works to evaluate any impact that the project might have on the transportation system. We're already looking for some possible community benefits that might address both traffic impacts and also improve the infrastructure in that immediate area. And that could include, for example, improved sidewalks, traffic control devices, for example, related to the new bike path, enhanced sidewalks, in addition to the bus stop that we talked about. So questions about the MUPD, the multi-unit property tax exemption, focused on how the process works and if it's possible to have a partial exemption. So our city attorney has answered that question. At the time of the exemption, in other words, how many years, that can be shortened from 10, but the percentage of the exemption must remain at 100%. We've had questions on the amount of the exemption, and Attachment E in your packet provides some answers regarding the amount of the exemption that Councilor Brown presented in his email. So we're showing in a chart there the way the tax is broken out by different taxing jurisdictions. Our analysis is not yet complete, but we are assuming or estimating that the annual MUPD benefit will be between $900,000 and $1.2 million. I want to mention that the final valuation on the project won't be determined until the assessor's work is complete after the project is constructed. And we will provide additional information on that in the next AIS for the public hearing on MUPD on April 23rd. For design and construction, questions focused on sustainability issues, and Capstone is working with eWeb to implement the Earth Advantage program, and also on mitigating construction impacts, and that topic came up in a number of meetings, including Capstone's meeting with Olive Plaza. And I expect that those meetings will continue towards as much of a resolution as we can get to, again, to make sure that the negative impacts are mitigated and the project goes forward, if it does, in a more positive way. Now, this has been an iterative process in terms of presenting information, getting questions back, getting answers, hearing the discussion here at Council. If there are questions that come up tonight that we can't answer, we will include those answers in the next packet for the 23rd. We have a number of staff here tonight to address whatever we can, or we'll take the question back with us, work on it, and bring it back to you. And in terms of the timeline, we do anticipate coming back for both public hearings, the Alley Vacation and the MUPD, on April 23rd, and we've reserved time on April 25th and May 9th for continued discussion and action if you choose. Thank you. I look forward to your conversation.
George, you're up first.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I thank you for answering my first round of questions. Part of it was not, there was something missing. I asked how much Kane Anderson is investing in the project, and I'd like to know, is that listed under the equity or construction loan in the pro forma?
I can give you an answer to that. I'll give you as much as I know at this time.
Okay.
We understand that the private equity totals $27 million. I don't have it broken down by investor on the private side.
Okay, thank you. Well, here's a list. I have so many questions, it's going to take several rounds. So I'll just start with the other ones that I emailed today. Maybe staff already knows. I'd like to just quickly run over those. Do we know what U of O's enrollment increase projections are?
I have an estimate from the U of O of, I believe, 24,500, but I would prefer to get additional information on their estimates directly from the U of O. And if you're okay, I'd like to include more information in the next packet.
Yeah, sure. I wasn't even, I mean, I didn't really even
Good.
Thank you. I didn't really expect answers, detailed answers to all these
Perfect.
tonight. It's just I know they've made, like, for instance, LCC's projection is 1% a year. It's leveled off. I just want to know what the U of O's projection is per year to see if that's leveling off or is it expected to increase. I'd also like to know what the current rental housing vacancy rate is, and specifically, what's the student housing vacancy rate? And I want to know, I think we need to know, we counselors need to know how many student beds will be coming online next fall, MUPTI and non-MUPTI. We know those projects at least, and I know that realtors and housing people have an idea of what other units will be coming online. And the U of O's dorm construction plans. Where am I at? Oh, okay, good. This project basically is a pass-through for Master Company. I mean, they're buying the property from Peace Health, and then they're turning around and selling it to, apparently, Kane Anderson, more so than Capstone. I'd like to know how much Master Company is paying for the property and how much they're selling it to Capstone for. Capstone Kane Anderson. Let's see. There's questions about, where am I at? My last question was about Eugene Code 2.9457. Quote, council shall specify the percentage and duration of the exemption. That seems really clear to me that we can change the terms of both the duration and the percentage of the MUPTI, not just the one which you stated. I don't know how you can get more clear than that. Council gets to specify the percentage and duration of the exemption. Okay. Plain English.
George, in the packet, there's an answer, and I'll give you basically the same information. What the council has done in the past, and what I think the code does both allow and require, is you cannot give an exemption for the land, and you cannot give an exemption for, in the past, for commercial aspects of a project. It was only for the residential. So in the past, where the council has said, we will give an exemption of, say, 85%, what that meant was 15% of the value of the project was in the land and in the commercial part. So that's where that percentage comes in. If you look at the state statute, there is nothing in the state statute that talks about percentage of exemption. Our code is only authorized based on that state statute. This is a state program, not a city program. We can't grant an exemption, property tax exemption, not authorized by state law, and I just haven't seen anything in state law that says you can grant less than 100% of the value of the residential portion. State law does provide that you can grant less than 10 years. So that's why I concluded you can do it for the years, you can't do it for the value. I agree with you that our code talks about percentage, but the reason why I believe it's there is because it's not 100% of the entire property. It's 100% of the residential portion, but it's only some percentage of the entire property.
Okay, thank you, but that's not specified in the Eugene Code.
Correct.
It doesn't.
You're right.
No, see, so that's exactly what I'm saying. I totally disagree with what you just said, because since it's not specified.
Put you the next round first.
Thank you.
Andrea?
Thank you,
then
Mayor.
Alan.
I just have a quick question for Glenn. As a Peace Health employee, will it at any time have to announce conflict of interest or whatever that is that we do when there's something going on?
Let me ponder that, and I'll give you an answer in a couple minutes.
I have nothing else, Mayor.
Okay. Alan?
Along the same lines of conflict of interest, so there's two actions that we're taking. One is around the MUPTI, the one is on the alley vacation, which is a quasi-judicial hearing.
Process.
And so when we have conversations with folks about the project, it gets all mushed together. And so how do we keep straight what we need to be careful about with regard to the alley vacation. What can we talk about in that regard, and what becomes a conflict?
You don't have a conflict. The two issues, because of quasi-judicial process, are bias and ex parte communications. With bias, if you would say, for example, that I don't care what the evidence is and I don't care what I hear at a public hearing, I know today that I will vote no or I will vote yes, then you have just demonstrated bias and you would not be able to participate on the alley vacation, which is the quasi-judicial one. So bias precludes you from participating. Ex parte communications, you can have conversations, even for a quasi-judicial matter, but if you do, before the first public hearing, there will be an opportunity for any of you who have had those kinds of ex parte communications to declare for the record, I've had this ex parte communication, here's the substance of what that communication was. If it's unclear as to whether this relates to the alley vacation or not, then my recommendation to you is you declare it, because there's no harm in declaring it. It just gets on the record the information that you heard. It gives the public an opportunity to say, I disagree with what you said, here's why.
So when we attend a forum or have a conversation with one of the parties, and we talk about both of those things, anytime that occurs, or if a forum occurs and they talk about the alley vacation and we were there, we need to say that we had that ex parte conversation. Communication. Okay. Thanks. So the total cost of the project is estimated at for phase. Okay. Go ahead.
I have the total cost for the project with both phases at 89, and I don't have the total cost for phase 1. Amanda, do you have that information? Okay, we'll get back to you on that.
And so the so the $27 million in private equity, that's roughly a third of the total project. The question I had is, how does it relate to phase 1? Are they breaking up the private equity into 2 phases, or is it just one big clump? One of the reasons I wanted to know that is that a lot of the MUPKI things that we see have really low private equity percentages, 10% sometimes, and that requires them to have a lot of debt. And to overcome that debt load, the MUPKI becomes significant to try to overcome that. In this case, a high percentage of private equity makes that hurdle a little lower, which is good for the project to move forward. But it also means that the folks that are putting this equity in, my understanding is they're private institutional investors that are looking for long-term investments with tax credits. So the tax credits go for the 10-year period, and so that's what they're in it for. So that makes me think that I'm not so concerned about short-term sale of the property to somebody else, because these institutional investors are going to stick through that more than likely and not have that sale. But more likely that on year 11, when the tax credits go away, is when the sale would occur. And that's where the issue of long-term management comes into play for me. And if they do that sale and they don't retain Capstone, which has, I think, a very good management plan that could work and be well implemented, how do we know that we're going to have a management plan from years 11 through 40? And so I'm interested in looking at codifying that in Eugene code that says apartment complexes over a certain size in the city of Eugene would require on-site management. Yeah, I'll clarify that a little in the next round. Oh, and just I heard U of O is flat over the next several years in terms of enrollment.
Thank you. That was my suspicion. Okay, well, I'll just speak to a little bit out of order with my stuff to what Alan just was talking about. On page 17 of our packet tonight, one of the questions was, what if Capstone isn't responsible for the management of the project in the future? The answer is they believe the likelihood the management team will remain is high. Nothing could be farther from the truth. And all the information last meeting, I researched 18 projects that they have built that fit the exact footprint of what is proposed here. And one of my questions was, how many do they still continue to manage? The answer is 0, not one. And one was occupied in 2009, 2.5 years ago. It's already been sold. One thing, if you do research, there's plenty of Google sites that rate apartment management. You can go and you see that the record of the new management teams is dismal on every single one of the projects that Capstone used to own. Everyone I've read, it's terrible. The maintenance of the building goes down, and the security goes down, cleanliness goes down, management responsiveness goes down. So there's no guarantee that this will be well managed. I think we see on page 127 a similar claim, but the evidence disproves the statement. The facts disprove what was said. Also on page 127, we learn that it's Kane Anderson decides when to sell, not Capstone. Kane Anderson will be the ones that will sell. Capstone may or may not continue management, but the evidence shows that they won't. This is just from their own website. That's how they do it. Okay. I've got some more questions. Some people have questioned whether Phase 2 will be built or not, and I believe that Capstone spokespeople have said that's not a 100% guarantee. They may or they may not. Probably they will. They want to see how Phase 1 goes. So I'm wondering how that affects the MUPTI request. What if they don't build Phase 2? Hopefully in the agreement there would be a provision that says, well, you don't get the whole tax exemption. Is that what would happen?
You couldn't get an exemption on a project that doesn't have any value, so it would be, the MUPTI would be limited to the project component or the phase that's completed.
So it would have to be, the pro forma, the whole thing would have to be rewritten then with the new specifications?
We'll address that question when we bring all of the MUPTI information back.
Well, I ask these questions because ORS 307, governs this type of thing, and this is the one of termination of exemption for failure to complete construction or noncompliance with terms. And I'll need another round.
So just to follow up on that, can we have some kind of information on the record of selling and the management practices that follow and all of that, just to have that information? Alan?
So I wanted to follow up on the on-site management code idea. So some of the things that I think need to be addressed, Nan, when you get back to us on that is, I think it needs to be citywide. It's not just specific to this project, but so that brings up the issue of what size project is appropriate for, and I think that number is related to the number of beds, which is really related to the number of people in the development, and whether or not it becomes retroactive to or just moving forward, depending on what that size threshold is. And then what does it mean to have on-site management? I think Capstone's plan is probably a good starting point to look at defining that. And then I'd also like to see what other jurisdictions have done in this area. I know this isn't uncommon in a lot of places that they require this. And so I'd like to see a little homework on what other folks have done. And that's it for right now on that one.
I'd like to circle back around to the conversation about 12th. And I realize that part of what might be done to make 12th, you'll do part of that in the traffic analysis about that effect. You also talked about bike lane. I just hope that in the course of the conversation, as we talk about the possibility of what might happen for bike mobility on that entire street, which would might in part be a capstone thing, but it might in part be what we're planning on doing too, and how we put that together to take advantage of this. If we have a real opportunity to create better flow between the university and this project, we ought to be sure we fully take advantage of it. Just thinking wholly is what I would say, as opposed to project specific. Okay, George, you're up again.
Thank you. Alan, to answer one of your questions, a transferable covenant, what regarding expectations of management performance is one way to do it. It's totally legal. It's possible. It happens. So even if Capstone, now I'm not knocking Capstone does a fine job management. Don't get me wrong. The problem comes when they're not in the picture anymore. No, Capstone's a very fine management company. The problems come with once they're gone, though, they're gone, and it's like the new people have not performed well. Pretty much every site I've checked out so far. So this is not a slam on Capstone by any means. But one way you can get away around that is, let's just assume that Kane Anderson sells this project before the 10 years is up, and they probably will. And Capstone probably will not be the new continue management. Transferable covenant, if that's violated, that's considered non-performance, and you lose the MUPTI. You lose it. That's one way to guarantee good performance after all of the initial principles are no longer on the scene.
Year 11, that doesn't mean anything.
No, year 11, you're absolutely correct. In year 11, it means nothing. But typically, they'll sell before that. All right. I just want to kind of go over, I'm looking, I've been hearing that, one rationale for doing this project is, well, we're not getting any tax money from it now. But my understanding is, in an earlier document that you shared with us, we're getting about $8,000, well, $8,000 total is being paid.
My information showed $5,000 on one lot.
It's $5,000. Okay, so the city shares about $2,200 a year. So we're getting a fraction. Now, using the corrected figures of $1 million per year exemption, I figured that the total taxes paid would be about $92,000 a year, of which the city's share would be $35,000. That's what we get for 10 years. I want everyone to be aware of that. Everyone who goes to budget meetings, everybody who goes to the homeless action meetings, this is what we get. That's what the general fund would get, $35,000 a year. To me, that's peanuts. That's not enough of a community benefit. I'll need another round.
Just a couple things that I'll just throw in the mix of the conversation right now. I just wanted to, it's sort of lifting myself above this conversation a little bit, and just I want to express the level of appreciation I have, I think we all have, for the community's interest and participation in this. I think it's really informative and helpful, and helps us move this discussion along. I think this is really a pivotal moment in our city's downtown history. I just also point out that from my perspective, there's inherent risk in action, and there's inherent risk in not acting. There's risk in both places, and it's up to us to figure out which one seems the smallest or the largest risk for us. And it's important to remind everybody that while we talk about this as a possible key piece of reinvigorating downtown, it doesn't mean that we don't have a whole list of other strategies that we're still employing and working on, from creating more activity and more safety to trying to develop real urbanization in our downtown. And I think it's also important for everybody who's paying attention to this to look at the things, all the projects that are going on downtown right now. Each one of those takes a public investment. There is nothing that is happening downtown that hasn't taken the city to step up as a partner. And so the question is, as George says so eloquently, are we getting what we should for that partnership? And that's the question before us. So I like to know is what's the local employee piece of this? Is it possible to have anything other? I know that you can't say that all of these are going to be student-filled. They are being built to be student-filled, but they don't have to be student-filled as far as I understand. I don't know if there's any different mix that could happen in terms of the four students to an apartment to more 2 and 3s. I'm happy about the weak car. I wonder if they should not be built in some incentive, something, either a reduction in what it costs or something that says if you don't bring a car at all, you get something for that in the reduction of your cost. Local contractors, state-of-the-art bike accommodations. As much as we can move our bike goals for the community through this, I think we should be trying to do it. So sort of pushing the edges of what we're trying to get done is what I'm within, and I want to be reasonable, but I also want to do this to our advantage as much as we can. George.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to go to, Nan mentioned that there's, some negotiation for community benefits going on. I think it's maybe a starting point, but it's not nearly enough what we need to negotiate with them. Capstone, Kane Anderson fully expect negotiations, serious negotiations. They've said that without the MUPTI, they will only make 3.2% return on their money. Do you know what grocery stores make nationwide? And I don't mean little grocery stores like ours. I mean Kroger, Safeway, Albertsons. 1.8 return on their investment. So a lot of people in this town go, wow, 3.2, I wish I could get 3.2 on my investment. But anyway, that's the low range. With the MUPTI, they get 8.8, 8.9. Their true line is somewhere in between those. They're willing and ready to negotiate a lot of stuff. They've done so in the past. I mean, these are big players. Kane Anderson is huge. Kane Anderson is a gigantic real estate company. They're into personal wealth management. They manage Wall Street hedge funds. So they know how to negotiate things. The line is somewhere between 3 and 9. But we'll never know where it is unless we start negotiating and pushing for true community benefits. And we need to ask for a lot more. And you know what? We'll find a line in there. And when we pass that line, they'll say no. But we'll never know where that line is unless we ask. So we have to push. And other cities do this. And for instance, I have another question. I'm wondering what happens if the bank lowers the mortgage rate. In the pro forma, it says it's 6.5. If that rate goes down, who gets the benefit of that extra savings? I think it should be the city. That's the way Portland handles it. Any profit in excess of a set threshold that's mutually agreed upon between the city and the developer, that's receiving tax benefit from the city of Portland. If they increase their profit, that gets paid back to the city. That's one option. Another option is the developer works it off by providing below market rate housing for a period following the expiration of the exemption. I don't know all the details. This is part of the conversation I feel that we should have with Portland's development team. And if we can get somewhere in there and work true benefits for our city, we need the money desperately. And I think that to give everything up for a lousy $35,000 a year that would just be like almost criminal.
Alan, were you waiting? Were you in the chief?
Yeah. So I remember my last point on the on-site management code. It was the enforcement mechanism and how that gets done. I'm intrigued by the idea of what Portland does. I'd like to hear more about that in terms of sharing the upside to the project in terms of the rate by the banks or the investors. And I also like to ditto the mayor's comments. This is very much an engaged community, and this has been the topic of conversation in most places. And also kudos to Capstone; they seem to be everywhere in answering people's questions. We can all disagree on what the answer should be, or whether or not we like what they say. But at least we're having this conversation. But one of the things I'd like help with is this perennial question I always have about MUPD, which is, how do we know that they wouldn't do the project without the MUPD? I don't know that we can answer that question, but I sure would like some thought put into that and help me figure that out. And I do like some of the things that they've said that they would do already, like the management plan and the WeCar. But I would encourage the Capstone folks to look at LEED certified building, whether or not the parking garages can have flat floors so they can be converted later if cars parking isn't as needed in the 30, 40 years from now. I like the idea of a covenant and working with them in their deeds, but that's not sufficient for me. I think it needs to. I don't want to have to deal with this issue every time a Capstone project comes up, or any project of similar size or even smaller than that. So that's why I think a citywide ordinance makes a lot of sense when you talk about large developments like this, especially in the areas around the university. And then is there any conversation with Capstone about a police substation on site? And then finally, the last question I had was related to the bus station, which I didn't quite get, since it's 1 block away from LTD's biggest bus station in the metro area. Why would we need a bus station a block away from the bus station?
Actually, a bus stop.
A bus stop, okay.
And I can't answer that one. Actually, I can answer.
A block away from the bus station?
One of the issues is to mitigate Olive Plaza's concerns that when they get on the bus, there are going to be so many other people getting on the bus. And so LTD has looked at the volume of students that will likely take the bus, that will hopefully take the bus, and thought it might work better for all of the neighbors around there if there were a bus stop conveniently located for LTD that was right on the project site, so that they get on and off there and there's less impact to other travelers around that area.
Well, the corridor there is...
Like an express kind of?
Yeah, because the corridor there is MX, which is
right.
Already exceeded its 20 years. It's already so successful that it's exceeded its 20-year projections in terms of ridership. So are you talking about a different bus?
Yes.
Kind of like what they do for Chase Village?
It would be...
That's paid for by the EMU.
I can give you more detail on this in our next AIS, if you like. But just a quick answer. The MX runs on 13th. Actually, it comes in on 10th and goes around and does that loop. But LTD has worked on a proposal with Capstone where the bus stop would be located on Willamette.
Okay.
Ellen?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to probe this community benefits thing, because I sort of feel like, and this is just for us, I'm guessing that if you went around this table, everybody has a little different idea of what community benefits are. So I think it would be worthwhile to sort of flesh out what this body means when they talk about community benefits. When you tell me that you would make a wider sidewalk for Olive Plaza people, that's a community benefit as far as I'm concerned. If you are going to have some kind of cooperative relationship with Look Me in the Eye that might end up providing jobs or some kind of other benefit for Look Me in the Eye, then that's another community. But I just like to flesh out a little bit because I think we have very different ideas about what community benefit is. And if I understand George, I think he's thinking about the community benefit that you either give up or don't have because of the tax break. So he can certainly express that better than I can. It's his opinion. But I'm just saying I think we have different different considerations and things that matter to each of us, and we ought to be sure what we're talking about together. Anybody else? George.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I mean, we really need to start talking about community benefits right now because time's a-wasting, and that's my next question. This particular MUPTI application was submitted on January 24th, and I've forgotten. Do we have 180 days or 120 days to take action? We have 180. All right, so we don't have to. 120 days would be May 23rd, May, June. So late July at the latest, we would have to approve or disapprove. So that gives us time to modify. Is that correct?
That may be correct in terms of the timeline. The developer has indicated that if they're unable to hold to a construction timeline that gives them occupancy in the fall of 2013, that they can't proceed with the project.
Mm-hmm. Okay, sure. All right. Well, that means we got to figure out what community benefits we want, whether it's a combination of. I still think we can do a lower rate. Find a place in between 3% and 9%. Do some physical things, bike paths. I know the Citizens Advisory Team has a whole list of community benefits they would like to see. Have they presented that to staff yet? No. That should be coming along. I've heard talk of that at some of the meetings. And just to go back to this question and answer that you provided, I will tell you Olive Plaza is not satisfied at all with the conversations that they've had with Capstone. They're not. They still have very serious objections, and I think they're all valid. So that, I don't know, I think it was a little misleading the way it was presented. It was like, oh, yeah, everybody's happy. No, it's far from the case. I just want to mention that. I guess my last question is, which Capstone projects, Capstone, Kane Anderson, have previously received tax abatements like this? I realize every situation is a little different. Every building site is a little different. They all have their problems, and some of them are very easy to build on, and some are very difficult. But it would be useful to know that, too. Thank you.
Mike? Thank you, Mayor. For me, the chief benefit is really very clear, that it will be there, that it will exist, that it will be able to serve the students and serve the community. And over the course of the 10 years, the exemption, sure, there will not be taxes collected that will be after that fact, but 10 years isn't what it used to be. I mean, 10 years ago, for crying out loud, Betty here still served on the council longer than I have so far. So, I mean, 10 years is nothing, and then we're talking about multiple times more tax income to the city for its existence there. This is doing so many things that we've planned for so long to be good in our downtown, from density in the core to invigorating the downtown with the folks that we want. To me, it's just we should be working very hard to see this take place. It will be good for our community, and I, for one, support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Glenn, do you have an answer for me yet?
Yes, you do not have an actual conflict.
I know I do.
You may have, at most, you would have a potential conflict.
Okay.
I need to do some more research to tell you for sure, but if you want to err on the side of caution, you can say what you've already said. You're an employee of Sacred Heart. You're declaring a potential conflict, and then you can participate.
Okay. So be it. So, Mayor, so I think what I think...
Andrea,
Yes,
you
sir.
actually have to say those words to get it onto the record.
So I'm declaring a potential conflict of interest because I'm a Peace Health employee. So, Mayor, it seems to me like you were asking us to articulate any community benefits that we want. That means to me. So my question to the city manager, though, is that a part of the MUPTI application?
Community benefits.
In the current one, or Ann?
Yes.
Yeah.
The MUPTI process and the MUPTI criteria includes public benefits, and they're listed out 8 different categories of things that we judge a MUPTI project for. Amanda, do you want to speak more to this? We've got those. Do you want to talk more about the MUPTI benefits, or is that enough of an answer?
Well,
we have them outlined in the process.
Okay, I will look at the package.
Okay.
Just to get clarification on that, because so that's good to know that we do have an opportunity to weigh in to that. My idea of a community benefit is jobs. I mean, because all that we want to do for the city, we can't do if we don't have money to do it with. And even though we are giving potentially perhaps allowing this to participate. If we choose not to do it, then that property is going to sit there, and that concerns me just as much, where hopefully if this goes forward, I shouldn't say hopefully, if this goes forward, then there'll be the opportunity for people to have jobs for the construction and then possible jobs down the road. And so for me, that is an important piece of what I believe I bring to the table because of all the people that I see unable to find jobs.
I'm going to let, I've got Alan and George in the queue, but Betty, this is your first time, so go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to ask another what if, or how do we know? How do we know that something else won't be built there if this isn't? This doesn't mean that this will remain vacant if we don't have this particular project. There might be something that would have much more benefit to the community that might come along in the future.
Alan?
Thank you.
So along those same lines, how long is the lot that's the parking lot that's currently vacant on that's phase 2? How long has that been vacant? Off the top of your head, Nan.
44 years.
How long?
I heard that there was a fire that I've heard about, which was the fire across the street from what was the old library,
right.
And there's nothing been on that site in the decades since. I'd have to go back and check to see.
That was the old gymnastics academy, and before that was like a car dealership.
Right, and that, right.
That's just been storage for a long time.
Right, and so one of the problems with this property is that they've got this big hospital on it that needs to get demolished before you can do much to it. Rehabbing that facility doesn't seem very enticing to market folks, so I'm not sure how long we would wait for a development there. I guess, for me it's a trade-off. On one hand, you got this up to $1 million a year in tax abatements over that 10-year period, and then on the other hand, you got the jobs, you got the downtown development, and you've got the people downtown, and from my perspective, it relieves a lot of the pressure off the South University neighborhoods, and we get the bike path straightened out, and so it's a trade-off here. And potentially some other things like a quality building and some long-term management structures in place. So one question I asked at the end was about the police substation. You could answer that? I have another one.
Capstone has indicated that they'd be very interested in having a police substation in their on their property, and I know they've had conversations with EPD. I don't yet have an answer or resolution on that.
Space donated or leased?
I can't go further than what I know, just that they've had conversations. Yes. Right. I know that they are interested, and they've approached Chief Kearns with that idea.
Good.
I know the chief is also, he's worked with LCC as well as others about trying to find the best space for that. So,
right, there's a bunch of places in play, right?
Yeah.
And then what about commitment to using local contractors for the job? So that the local construction jobs stay local.
We've had meetings already that involved Highland Construction, and I don't have an indication yet that they've been awarded the contract, but they've at least been in on the meetings. I could find out very quickly if they have a contract with them so far. Have they been awarded? Not yet, but they're already engaged in conversations with local contractors. Nothing signed yet.
Okay, thanks.
That sounds really good to me, to have local contractors. Chris, and then George.
Thank you. You asked about community benefit. The first thing I would say is a community benefit is something that creates for the larger community, in whatever way you define that, whether it's population or whatever. It can create an economic benefit, similar to what Andrea talked about. It can create a social, cultural, quality of life benefit. In other words, it improves the social, cultural quality of life. It could improve the environmental, technological, or regulatory. Those are all standard ways in which you measure benefit. I think we need to look at this in terms of, does it benefit economically? Does it benefit socially, culturally, quality of life? I don't know that there's an environmental downside. I think they're designing a green building, so I think there may be some environmental upside, but that would be something to talk about. The other one is, as we talk about how we go through this process, something that I've been listening and I want to make sure we're very thoughtful about it is, you can go into this where you can ask, you can agree, or you can tell. And I think if we approach a negotiation with them as that center part, which is we reach common agreement on something, I think that's where you get the greatest benefit. Where we talk together about what is agreeable to both of us, what provides benefit to both of us, and we move forward. I think that it is possible that if you just ask somebody, gee, you think you might want to do this, and they say no, yeah, there is possibly not a benefit in that, and we don't really get something for it. So I think just asking, would you do us a favor, please, is probably not necessarily what we might be looking for. But at the other extreme, if we say, you will do this, then that's a tell, and I can think of a lot of folks who would say, for pride or whatever reason otherwise, there's a lot of other cities I can go to who have universities, and I'll go build my project somewhere else. And as far-fetched as that may seem, I can think it was not that many years ago when we told a hospital what they were going to do, and they left. And that still rings in my ears. You can tell up to a point, but then there's a point beyond which tell turns into goodbye. I don't want to just ask, and I think if we're just asking for favors, maybe that's not the ideal. But I don't want to get into the position of starting to say, we're going to tell you what to do, or it's not going to be okay. I think the best course for us, and what's good for us and good for them, is to work on this as an agree. We will agree to work on this together. I think that's what staff is trying to do, and that's what I want to hear back is, what are we reaching agreement on? Because I think that can benefit us and can benefit the rest. The last point is, I don't really have enough time to make my last point, so I'll skip 3 seconds.
George.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I'd just like to address a couple of points that were...
Put them in the queue.
I'd like to address a couple of points that were mentioned. If your enrollment is flat, then these 1,200 beds are not going to really be 1,200 new residents. Some of them will be new. We don't know how many. Some will be new people. But mostly they'll just be shuffling students around from pre-existing housing, many of whom are people that, have a duplex or maybe rent out a room in their house or maybe a garage apartment or maybe a small unit, 4 units, 6 units. These are people that have never received a MUPTI, that are paid their taxes from their full tax amount from day one. So I see this as competing with people like that, and I don't think that it's fair. Now, I'm still willing to negotiate, but we have to negotiate, and we have to fall somewhere comfortably for both parties. And frankly, I'm not sure if I will be comfortable with it, but we need to go somewhere between 3 and 9%. Jobs. I heard Nan say that there'll be 5 full-time jobs and 12 part-time jobs. Is that the question we need to ask ourselves, is that really that big of a deal? Is that worth $1 million a year tax exemption? I mean, let's just take our little store. We finished, for us, a huge remodel, $500,000 remodel. We're paying off our loan. We never got any exemptions. I never would even dream of asking for an exemption, frankly. We've hired 4 new people. We're going to hire another 4 people. That's 8. We didn't get a penny in exemptions. I don't want the city's taxpayer money for our store. I mean, to me, that's criminal. These are things I think that we need to think about. No matter how any of us fall on this at the end of the day, these are things to think about. And this is stuff that I hear from all of my small business friends all over town, as well as people who are retired and stuff. It's like, I'm telling you, there's a lot of puzzlement and a fair amount of anger over this whole project and this MUPTI business. So it's really not going to provide that many new jobs. I mean, construction, sure, but after the year, boom, they're all gone. You can't look at those. I mean, we provided construction jobs during our remodel. So it's like, yeah, you can't build anything without construction workers. That's short-term and short-lived, and I don't really think that we even should talk about that. I have one more thing to say, but I'm running out of time.
Go ahead.
I'll just take another 3 minutes, but I probably won't even use all of the 3 minutes. One argument I've heard, in fact, I've had ex-city staff people come up to me, out on the street, and they go, well, you must be really just jumping up and down about 1,200 new customers. For the benefit of people who may not know, we have a grocery store a block away from the project. And I go, well, not really. And they look at me like I'm insane. Who wouldn't like 1,200 new customers? But here's the deal. Housing, especially a huge massing like this on 2 city blocks of downtown, it's not about customers. It's about the life of the neighborhood. It's about the life of the community. How's that all going to work out? It's not strictly getting thrilled about, in a commercial sense, of all these new customers. It's like, how's it going to work out for the neighborhood, the community, the larger community, our town? Is this an appropriate way to use tax money? When we're going to have to be cutting library hours at the 2 branches? When we're going to cut the money to LCAS? When we're going to perhaps shut down a fire team at station number 2? If it was flush times, and I don't know exactly when Eugene's ever been super flush, but it was flush times, and we could pay our bills and maintain the services, and we had a little money left over in the city general fund, I would say, yes, of course, let's do it. But it's not flush times. These are times of scarcity and peril. I mean, this is the worst I've ever seen it. We're all completely sickened by the budget cuts that we're going to have to make, and they're terrible, but there's no good alternative. And so, and to give these tax exemptions to people who are not here for the long term, they're not going to be part of our community. They're going to come in and make the investment, extract the highest amount of profit that they can get, and that's okay, that's the American way. But they're not really going to be part of our community. They're not here for the long haul. And I feel like to give exemptions of this magnitude, if we even decide that we should do that, it should be somebody who's going to participate in the good things and the bad things that we're all participating in now, and share in the life of the community. This is a kind of a cut and run thing, and they're going to take the money and it will go back to the world of capital, the impersonal world of capital, to be rotated and moved somewhere else. A local developer, most of it would stay here and recirculate in the community. That's not going to happen in this case. So that's another thing I think we need to take into account, the life of the community, when we make our decision.
Well, I think Chris brought up some really good points, and I'm not going to take the time to repeat some of them. But I think to say that the people that occupy these, that would potentially occupy these spaces were not part of our community is kind of a slap in the face to the University of Oregon. We as a city have worked very hard to make sure that not only the university, but the students are a part of our community, and for someone to say that they're not going to be a part of our community is wrong. As far as people upset about not getting exemptions, well, if you live within the area where the exemptions are available, apply for them. And if you meet the criteria, then maybe they'll get granted. I think a project like this, or a large influx of people into the downtown, is exactly what we need. You want to talk about the life of our community, it's starting to come back. If you walk downtown recently, you can see that there's more activity going on down there, and I think that whether it's this project or another project 3-4 blocks down the road similar to this one, to pump more life in our community, you need people to actually take part into this. And not only are you going to have as far as creating jobs, not only are you going to have the managers working there, but you're going to have on-site maintenance staff. You're going to have on-site security staff. And with this, a large amount of people, you're going to have to probably start ancillary businesses, whether it be restaurants, whether it be competing stores, or whatever the case may be. but you're going to have more businesses coming into the downtown area to serve the people that are moving into this area. So, there are some good points, there are some bad points, and we need to weigh them all before we make our final decision. And I think to make a final decision at this point is not the right way to go.
George?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, yeah, I don't think we're planning on making a decision tonight. That's for discussion. And George, when I said that they leave, I wasn't, and don't contribute, I wasn't talking about the students. I was talking about the handlers of capital, for whom this is an investment. And they extract their profit, and they get their MUPTI, and then they sell to somebody else, and they leave town, and they go back to the world of capital. That's who I was referring to, not the students. No, it's true, students they tend not to vote, and sometimes during presidential elections, but not the local elections so much, and they don't often show up with any great frequency to neighborhood meetings, but they do participate in. I went to the tree planting that Mayor Piercy attended, and there was a girls' sorority team there, and they did great work. And at the other tree planting I went to, there was a sorority and a fraternity, and they worked their tails off and did great work. So, no, students do participate. That's not in the community, but I mean they're mainly here to get their education and have some fun on the side. So, but that's not who I was referring to. Thanks.
I would just say, of course, we all recognize that a huge portion of our economy is based in the university, and the university is made up of students, and so they live here, and there's like 25,000 of them need to find a place to live. And so we're trying to talk about how that can best be done in our community, and I just encourage us all. I don't think there's anyone around this table who doesn't care about the life of the neighborhood and the community. I think we all do. We just have different ways of approaching it, and different things that we think are correct tools or not correct tools, and everybody's got a right to those opinions. I think everybody has the interest of the community at heart and wants to do well for the community. So we'll continue this conversation and get more information. We thank you very much, and we have a meeting going.
Yeah, tell us your metaphor. Come on.